Hey, I'm Jeff, and welcome to Armored Brush Minis. In this video I'll be showing you how I paint Grail Knights for Warmaster Revolution. In case you weren't aware of it, Warmaster Revolution is a modern community-driven rework of an older Games Workshop game from the early 2000s. These models are at a 10mm scale, so they're about half an inch tall. These sculpts in particular are 3D prints from Forest Dragon called Elite Knights. Forest Dragon is one of many creators supporting Warmaster Revolution and other epic scale games with a great page-count page and fully supported STL files for easy printing. I'll link their page in the description, so go and check them out and grab some STLs for yourself. These are tiny models packed with a ton of detail, but hopefully this video will show that with some simple colors, easy techniques, and a steady hand, they can look pretty good. So for painting the horses, there's very little of the horse exposed through all the barding in the horse's armor. I try to mix the colors of the horses up so that no two strips are identical. I use Citadel's Zandri Dust, Mournfang Brown, Dryad Bark, and Celestra Grey for my horses, but any mix of browns, greys, beiges, or even black would work. Horses are all sorts of colors really, so you could go as hard as you like with this, but I find keeping a simple palette on the horses gives enough variation without being distracting. In this step you can be pretty haphazard with the base coats, since there's no other colors on the model yet, so just paint on all the horsey bits. I just go through each of the colors one at a time to make sure that the colors are all spread out between the different horses. There's no wrong way to do this kind of thing, so whatever you think looks good, feel free to do it. For the barding on these guys, I use Citadel's Teclis Blue. It's a pretty saturated blue all in all, and it's perfectly regal and really makes them stand out on the battlefield as some of the ladies' chosen warriors. Most of the colors you'll see me use on these guys have very good coverage, but I'll almost always go back and do a second coat of paint just to make sure everything is really solid. I use washes pretty sparingly at a 10mm scale, so usually the color that's being applied won't have anything to hide behind later. Since these models are so small, just be sure to get all of the outward facing barding, especially in between the legs on the front model of each strip. In between the legs of the rear model, under the torso of the horses, it's not really that critical to make sure you have every inside surface covered, but after basing, it's next to impossible to see in there, and realistically, anyone who's poking around in there should have bigger fish to fry. As you can see, it's really just a case of getting all of these larger surfaces coated with a layer of blue. Pay special attention here, however, to the horse's faces, since there are a few different styles of horse head, and sometimes there's a bit of blue needed around their eyes. For painting the horse's tack, like reins and straps, I return to the Mournfang Brown. Right away you can see that on a horse that's also Mournfang Brown, it can sort of look like the straps are made of horse skin. Though that may be true, it is leather after all, it becomes less of a sticking point the more details we add to the models. This step in addition is also the first time you'll have to be fairly neat with your paint. I'm using a Wargamer Regiment brush from Army Painter for most of these details. It's a good sized brush, with a decent point, and I have pretty good control of it. That being said, just move your models to a comfortable position, brace your fingers as you see that I do, and carefully add your paint. The obvious straps are easy to get, but don't forget any straps that may go across or over the horse's head or nose. These little details really add a lot to the final look of your model. It doesn't matter how much time you spend at the painting desk, mistakes still happen. To fix this one, I quickly wet my brush and wipe away the excess paint, then dry the brush off and wick away the dirty water. I just go back with a little dot of Teclis Blue and the mistake is invisible, so you can move on without slowing down your workflow too much. Next up is a plate armor of the riders, armor on the horse's neck, head, and legs, as well as the lance tips. All of these details are painted with Iron Hand steel from Citadel. This will need 2 coats to make sure it's really solid. I like to use a brighter steel color for this, as the knights will get a black wash later, and I find having a slightly brighter base coat means that I can get away with a wash without having to brighten it back up after. I find this step really satisfying since the silver stands out so well against the blue and browns we've been using so far. At this step, just get the silver all over the rider. Don't worry about getting paint on the shield, lance, or cloak, but be careful of the rider's feet as they sit right up against the blue barding. Even then, the transition between the blue and silver will get some wash down into it, so try and paint up to, but not onto, the blue. You can see I really move the models around at this point, poking paint down into the gap between the horse and the rider specifically. It's hard to make out any individual details down there, but there are belts, buckles, and all kinds of straps if you really want to punish yourself. For me personally, I'd rather just get some color down there and move on. At this point, I paint the lance shaft with Citadels of Abaddon Black. It's just a solid black, and it'll stand out against the next color that we put onto these guys. I use an off-white here, one, because it stands out against the blue, and two, it shows that the Grail Knights are a symbol of purity and holy vengeance on the battlefield. So that's pretty wicked if you ask me. For this color, I'm looking to get it into the cloaks, shield faces, lance pennants, and helmet ribbons. That being said, I cut the clip a little bit short because the camera was getting in the way, and I myself was getting too messy, but you get the gist of what I was doing. So the gold. This is done with Citadel's Retributor armor. This color goes onto the shield rims, heraldry, helmet wings, lance grip, and the horse's head armor. These details are really tiny, and mistakes, especially on the shield, will really stand out. If you're going to take your time anywhere, this is the spot. Not too much paint on the brush, and really light strokes can save you some serious headaches at this point. Take it easy, stay the course, and these details will be looking great in no time. Now that I've done a few models, you can really see how the gold details pop on these guys. The small grail motif on the horse's head armor is an easy thing to miss, so make sure you're getting that also. That being said, you may notice that there are small grails on the horse's leg armor as well. I didn't paint these, since the majority of them are downward facing, and the wash will show them off well enough without attracting the eye too much. Finally, we're onto some liquid talent. Wash. The one I use here is Nuln Oil from Citadel. Make sure to get this all over the knight's armor, lance grip, helmet wings, and down in between the transition of the knight's armor and the horse's barding. This helps to blend these colors together while keeping the armor looking pretty clean. I also make sure to place wash down the front of the rider where it transitions into the horse's neck armor, so that there is contrast between these two areas. I don't, however, put wash onto the horse's neck or head armor. The different plates are distinct enough in my opinion, and the natural shadow on these areas leaves it looking bright and polished. Before I wrap this up, you may have noticed there's an odd feather on a shoulder that you didn't see me paint, and I left out showing the banner getting painted. There's 4 feathers across these models, painted with Averland Sunset and washed with Cassandora Yellow, both from Citadel. They're just tiny details I didn't bother to film, so you'll have to forgive me. As for the banner, I tried to film painting it, but the camera kept getting in the way and I was making a mess. There's only so many times you can paint a banner before it starts to look lumpy. I gave up trying to film it. I'll do better next time, maybe on a banner that's a bit more accessible. It was also painted with Ulthuan Grey once again, and Retributor armor for the banner's insignia. That being said, there's my completed unit of Grail Knights from Forest Dragon for Warmaster Revolution. Feel free to check out my other tutorials, and I'll be posting more tutorials for models of all kinds of different game systems in the future. If you want to see more of my work, check out @ArmouredBrushMinis on Instagram. And please leave any feedback down in the comments if you enjoyed this or it was helpful, and feel free to subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time at Armoured Brush Minis.